Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GL Chapter 38, Section 18, and the Governor's June 16, 2021 revised order extending remote participation by all members in any meeting of a public body. This meeting, the Great Barrington Select Board, will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and a requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure the public can adequately access proceedings in real time via technological means. Pursuant to MGL 7C 30A Section 20F, to notifying the chair of the public body, any person may make a video, audio recording of an open session of a meeting of a public body or may transmit the meeting through any medium. At the beginning of the meeting, the chair shall inform other attendees of any such recording. This meeting is being recorded by the town, by CTSB, by Berkshire Edge, and other interested parties. Any members of the public wishing to speak at the meeting must receive permission of the chair. The listing of agenda items and those reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may be brought up, may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. I'll start with Select Board's announcements and statements. Garfield? You're muted, Garfield.
Nothing, thank you.
You're welcome. Eric?
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Lee?
Nothing.
Ed?
Nothing.
Okay, we have one topic tonight, the Housatonic Waterworks discussion. Tonight's meeting is one of a series of community listening meetings hosted by the Select Board. The topic this evening is the continuing problems with Housatonic water. We will begin tonight's meeting with a series of updates by the town manager. Then I will open the floor for comments by customers of the Housatonic Water Company. This meeting is solely about Housatonic and the current water situation. The ground rules for tonight are as follows. Like other community meetings, we are here to listen to you. The Select Board will not be deliberating this evening. We will be listening, although we may ask clarifying questions. Each participant may speak once for a maximum of 3 minutes. I ask you that you confine your remarks to the current water problems in Housatonic. Please try to keep personalities out of the discussion. I ask that you try not to repeat what others have already said. When you're called on to speak, please give your name and address for the record. To be very clear, the Select Board believes the residents of Housatonic should have clean water for drinking, bathing, laundry, and cooking. We are very aware of the current state of the water. We know that the state says the water is safe to drink, but we understand why the residents are concerned due to the appearance of the water. We think that water should be safe to drink and aesthetically pleasing. It also should not ruin residents' clothing or stain their bathtubs. We are committed as a board to find a solution to this long-standing problem. Mark, go ahead.
Thanks, Steve. So I'd just like to begin this evening by providing a brief recap for anyone that's joining us for the first time, and then I'll move into some more recent content. So in 2018, after receiving some roily and discolored water complaints from village residents, the Select Board hired a consultant to conduct a phase 1 study, and this mostly consisted of a review of existing conditions with both water systems in town. A really general overview to get a better sense for what could be occurring. And fast forward now to July of 2020, the board instructed staff last year to hire consultants capable of completing a phase 2 study. And by phase 2, I mean studying the existing infrastructure for the Housatonic Waterworks system, that is developing a capital improvement plan, estimating the costs associated with this capital improvement plan, and then providing us with an estimated value of the Housatonic Waterworks system. Those findings were presented to the board and village residents in public session in July and August of this year. In addition to this, the board sent letters to the Baker administration, the Department of Public Utilities, or DPU, the Department of Environmental Protection, DEP, and what we were looking to do is seek help from these regulatory agencies on the state level. Last month, we held several working meetings with the various parties involved, as we had promised back in late August at our last meeting where we focused on this topic. Since that time, we met with representatives from the GB Fire District, from Housatonic Waterworks. We met with representatives from DPU, DEP, and then our state legislators were involved, in addition to a representative from the governor's office. And at this point, we've identified 4 potential options. And I think I've covered these once before, but I'd just like to run through them again. The 4 potential options that we see on the table at the moment are: 1, acquire the Housatonic Waterworks system and operate the system as an enterprise fund, meaning that it's a user-paid system similar to our wastewater treatment plant. The second option would be to acquire Housatonic Waterworks and then hand the system over, for payment or not, that has not been determined at this point, to an independent water district serving its existing customer base. So this would be a similar model to the Great Barrington Fire District at this point, and that would require special legislation and taxing authority. The third option would be that the town acquires the water system, the Housatonic Waterworks system, and then works with the fire district and their prudential committee to merge or potentially merge those 2 systems. And then the fourth option would be little or no town involvement at all, which means that the Housatonic Waterworks would remain a private entity and the town would work with regulators and Housatonic Waterworks to improve water quality through capital improvements to the system. So basically status quo, but with the town playing a more active role than it has in the past. And full disclosure, none of these options will happen overnight, of course, and 3 of them require that the town acquire the system, which could take several months to years. And it would also require town meeting approval, which, as you are all well aware, that presents its own challenges, since the Housatonic water system serves a much smaller portion of the overall town. So what you can expect to happen now, just a few things. We'll continue to explore options for the acquisition of this system. That is, I think, first and foremost. And this means meeting with Housatonic Waterworks, or continuing to meet with Housatonic Waterworks representatives and investigating what other legal pathways are available to us to acquire this system. We will simultaneously seek out potential funding sources for the acquisition and capital upgrades through grants and through other low interest loans. And we've already started having those conversations with our legislators and asked for help with that. We'll be exploring filtration options. And, I guess the question on the table is, could we utilize a funding source such as or a portion of the $2 million in ARPA funds, the American Rescue Plan Act, to provide grants to impacted homeowners as a short-term solution. We'll be exploring whether or not assistance from the Massachusetts Attorney General's office is necessary or would be helpful. And then finally, we'll be working with DPU officials to explore the option of requesting rate relief for Housatonic Waterworks customers. This is something that we've requested in the past, and something we requested in the earlier letter that I mentioned to DPU from 2020. But a formal petition would need to be filed with DPU. We were made aware of that at our recent meeting as well. So I'll continue meeting with officials from the DPU. My next meeting with them is next Tuesday to discuss what that path might look like. So we still have a lot of work to do here. But we are very, very committed to finding long-term solutions. And before I conclude, I just wanted to take this opportunity to remind everyone of a few things. Our engineering studies, I know I've said this multiple times, I just want to say it again in case I capture someone new tonight. Our engineering studies can be found on our website, townofgb.org, on the select board page under the tab titled Housatonic Waterworks Information. There's a whole group of documents and reports and and whatnot listed in that tab. So if you're looking for anything in particular, that would be the place to go. If you cannot find something you are looking for, feel free to reach out to my office and we can provide that. And lastly, Housatonic Waterworks will be hosting an informational session this week, Thursday night, October 14th at 6 o'clock via Zoom. And you can find more information related to that meeting at Housatonic Waterworks website, which is housatonicwater.com. And I will make a note for myself now to try to share that information on our Facebook page and Instagram pages so that we can get that message out more widely. And that's all I have, Steve. Thank you.
So just to keep everyone up to date, there are 29 attendees and 6 panelists for a total of 35 people on the line. Please raise your hand if you would like to speak, and I will recognize you. Suzanne Fowle.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Suzanne or Susie Fowle, 40 Kirk Street in Housatonic.
Thank you.
I wasn't expecting you to get called on first because I have questions that I thought might get answered in the interim. But when you said to raise your hand, I thought I better raise my hand.
I appreciate it.
I thought I was just getting in line.
You were quick.
But I'll go ahead and ask my questions, and I apologize if any of these are obvious or that I could maybe find the answers on the website. I'm wondering if water quality has been tested by an independent lab. I know the engineering studies did not involve water quality testing, didn't involve any redo of old tests, and I'm wondering if that was ever remedied or could be remedied, and if we could get some new quality tests by an independent lab, like maybe one that's not even in the Berkshires.
Susie, just ask all your questions, and I'm not sure we're going to answer them all tonight, but we will get you answers.
I'm going to log in that question. And part of that question is based on the, I'm not sure if you guys are aware of the Environmental Working Group, ewg.org. They test a lot of municipal water supplies, and they report it on their website. Housatonic Waterworks is on there, and it passes the EPA safety standards, but the EPA safety standards aren't as high as what Environmental Working Group would recommend. So it lists some of the contaminants that our water has. It's really handy. Environmental Working Group, and it's their municipal water database. You can search by zip code. And then speaking of data, I'm wondering if anybody is the engineering firms, perhaps, or anyone is collecting data on where the brown water is. Like, are we gathering data that eventually gives us a map that might show us, oh, it's almost always brown in this pocket of Housatonic, and it's almost always clear in this part of Housatonic? I mean, ideally, Housatonic Waterworks would be doing that because that would be part of their job to sort of locate the problems. But do we know if anybody's collecting that kind of data? Okay, so I guess logging in questions.
Yeah, we're just going to log those all in. If we don't have the answers, we'll get them to you.
One more question is, and I'm not arguing with this at all, but I'm wondering why acquiring the system would need to go before town meeting. Not because I'm arguing, I'm just wondering what is the rule that requires it to go before town meeting? Is it just a matter of how much money is being spent, or yeah, just what's the trigger there?
We can answer that one. Mark, go ahead.
Sure. So that would we would need to have an appropriation from town meeting first and foremost, but it would also require the acquisition of real estate, which is a town meeting approval.
Okay, so any amount, any real estate acquisition, large or small? Okay, got it.
Yeah, purchase would always be a town meeting approval.
And it doesn't even matter where the money comes from, it's just the fact that it's a real estate transaction.
That's correct. And then your other three questions, I think are excellent questions, and I will get some clarification from DEP on all three.
Thank you very much. Thanks for everything you guys are doing.
Thanks, Susie, appreciate it. Next one is Dave and Georgine.
Hi, Dave Long, 304 North Plain Road, Housatonic. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So, having grown up in Housatonic,
We lost you there. Dave, just unmute yourself.
that wasn't an option a second ago. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Having grown up in Housatonic, like most people in Housatonic, you know, I've had a relationship with the water quality going up and down, and the causes have always changed and always been different. And, you know, so it is a little hard to think that this is just the one problem. And if we fix this, then we won't continue to have water quality issues, given a lot of things. But my primary concerns really come down to these two things. First is when I read the letter that Housatonic Water just distributed to all of its customers, basically was implying that, you know, most of this water, the money that would be spent on renovating the water system would be going to a coke membrane filtration system. Well, I'm not sure that most people in Housatonic would be very happy about giving Charles Koch $30 million. And you know, what is the scope? How much does that filtration cost? And just because the consultant recommended that unit, when there's plenty of other companies that make very high quality water filtration systems, many of them win major international water environmental awards. I mean, are we really, is the choice for Housatonic that you either get clean water by giving Coke money or we live with dirty water? I mean, because that's kind of the way the letter presented the way that the company was going forward. And, you know, it worries me that the town of Great Barrington will take on, you know, the baggage that comes with that decision if we were to buy it. The second part of this is kind of related to that, is that some of this is beginning to feel an awful lot like the closing of the dump, where in the end, the town basically bought for good money the dump, turned it into a transfer station, and indemnified Fred from any of the choices that he made getting that dump in place and running it for the town. So it's a little hard to sort of say, okay, now we're going to take on another huge debt from a large piece of infrastructure that Fred has developed for, you know, as a municipal system essentially, and then left the broken pieces for the town to pick up. It seems to me that any kind of deal between Fred and the town of Great Barrington has to sort of understand the culpability and the fact that, you know, that water system now is incredibly devalued because of this problem and the capital costs it would take to fix the problem. So I don't know about anyone else in Housatonic, but I don't have a huge appetite to basically bail that out, given multiple histories. So, I mean, that's basically what I came here to say. I mean, in all due respect, you know, I've grown up with Fred. You know, Fred was actually something of a hero to me growing up because he could do anything. Him and Jack Cook and all of these guys they could make things happen out of thin air. And, you know, I appreciate Fred's ability to do that. And Jim, you know, I grew up, we went to school together. And, you know, a lot of that sort of emotional stuff is tied to most of us who grew up here in Housatonic. And so these are tough questions, and it's tough to push the hard realities of what the proposition is really saying.
Thanks,
So,
Dave. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Really appreciate it. Elizabeth Rockefeller?
Yes, Elizabeth Rockefeller, 284 Park Street. My question is that throughout all of this past summer, which has been the worst I have ever seen in the 50 years of living in Housatonic, a majority of the customers pay taxes to Great Barrington, and yet there didn't seem to be any relief offered by bottled water or anything to help the Housatonic residents get through the mundane process of water, drinking water, cooking water, and neither had Housatonic Water done that at all either. No relief. The only relief was Taft Farms offering his well to give us fresh, clean water. And my other question is, this whole process at this point seems to be blamed on manganese, but what about the rust-like residue? Mark, you have my sample there. I have 2 more on my back porch. Rust-like residue at the bottom that has settled down from the water samples. I believe this is from the aging pipes, which were supposed to be replaced and haven't been replaced by Housatonic Water. And yet we still have, there's 2 main problems. Manganese, okay, if this big solution, the filtration system fixes that, we still have this residue at the bottom of the water because the pipes haven't been dealt with. Those are my 2 questions.
So for the board, I'll answer one of them. Part of what we're looking into now is some sort of relief. It didn't happen over the summer, but we are looking, that's what Mark was a little bit talking about in his presentation, is how can we offer relief and what kind of relief that really means something. You know, providing one set of filters when people would have to have them installed and maybe replaced every month probably isn't substantial relief. So we are looking into what kind of relief we can provide. So the other question is one that the experts are going to have to look at, because I'm not going to tell you that getting rid of manganese is going to get rid of all your problems. So I think it's a good observation, and we're aware of it.
Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome. Amelia Berg.
Yes, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, thank you. This is Amelia Berg, 28 Kirk Street, and wondering if I was not clear, is the select board involved with the meeting on Thursday?
No, that meeting is a private meeting called by an informational meeting by the Housatonic Waterworks.
Okay, so no one from the select board will be able to attend?
Well, I'm not saying we won't attend.
Oh, okay.
So, but we're not part of that. It's not our meeting. We have
Yeah.
nothing to do with the content. And as interested observers, it's possible, depending on our schedule.
Okay, great. It would be great if someone could be there, but thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? There we go. Pat Hollenbeck.
Thank you, Steve.
You're
Pat
welcome.
Hollenbeck, 1075 Main Street, Housatonic. I guess I just have a couple questions. What are we paying for fire hydrants, to use the fire hydrants? And I guess the second question is why? And then we know there's problems. Some people that are going to go to sleep tonight in Housatonic are going to near hydrants that may or may not have enough adequate water to it. So I think on top of everything else being discussed, this has got to really move to the front burner here Here's a suggestion. I don't know if this works, but to me, it would be as a safety stopgap measure. What if Housatonic Waterworks rented a couple water tankers, even if they use some of the water in Cook's garage, and just store those tankers somewhere in Housatonic that are ready to go if there's a fire? I mean, we need another plan here. This is really awful. And I know the color of the water, the questions about the water is important, but if there's not enough water when we need it, it's a matter of safety of the fire workers, the firemen working at a fire, and the people asleep in those houses. So I'd like to just hear some expanded discussion about what I think is the most important issue about this, one that we could somehow fix rather than long-term problems. That's it. Thanks.
Thanks, Pat. And that is a good point that we have not brought up. I know Chief Berger's on the line. I don't know if, Mark, you want him to speak, or you want to speak to it, or you want to put it on our list?
Yeah, I'd be happy to have Chief Berger provide the fire protection point of view here. But while we're promoting him, I just wanted to address Patrick's question relative to the cost of hydrant rentals. And that number is about just under $45,000 per year.
Chief Berger, if you want to add anything to that?
Yes. So I guess to answer the first question as to why are we paying for the hydrants, because the question isn't so much do they work or do they not work. The hydrants should work, operate correctly. They do get flushed and tested every year. And just the couple weeks ago, they replaced a couple that weren't working. With regards to the water flow coming out of them, any water is way better than nothing. The majority of house fires, if we get there quickly enough, we can easily put them out with 500 gallons a minute, which is what's coming out of the hydrants in the on the main roads in town. So to not pay for them and to not have the right to use them would be a absolutely horrible safety problem for Housatonic. So that's the answer to the first question as to why we pay for them. The second one is that tankers that are designed for fire protection cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, $500,000 plus generally. So buying a few of those isn't very cheap. And we do have plans in place. We call mutual aid. Our mutual aid companies have tankers. And we also have plans of laying supply lines to the river and all different kinds of things. This is a challenge that we have struggled with in Housatonic for decades. The lower flows there are nothing new. Nothing has dramatically changed with the system to make it worse right now. And so we do have plans in place. Us having firefighters available to respond to emergencies is extremely challenging. And I can tell you that we don't have extra people to pick up tankers at Cook's garage or anything like that. So we do have plans in place. The majority of fires we handle with the water that we carry on our first due engine, and hydrants nearby are extremely helpful. If a fire gets out of control in some places in town, yes, what's in the hydrants is not adequate for those situations. Thankfully, we have avoided those. It's one of the reasons it's important to have a good fire department with quick responses. So I hope that answers most of your questions there.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate that. Anyone else? Dan Bailey.
Question I have is regarding potential financing, just a hypothetical, of course, obviously, if the town were to purchase it. and the rough numbers were for infrastructure were something around 30 million. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay. And then the assessed value of the company itself was somewhere around 5. Is that what I understand?
correct.
Okay, so we're looking at 35. If the town were to purchase it for 40 million, 10 for the business portion of it, and well, purchase it for 10 million, and then do a 30 or 35 million dollar capital acquisition, how would that affect the tax rate? In other words, if 35 million is borrowed over 20 years, that doesn't turn out to be a lot, right?
Dan, I think your mind is working right, but I think your mind is working different than mine, which is that if the town was able to acquire it, I believe that we will be able to get either federal or state money. Not all 30 million, not all 5 million, and those are hypothetical numbers. Please don't print those. We've had some assurance that there will be a possibility of state money available for at least part of this. So although you're right that 30 million over 20 years, is doable, I don't believe that this town will ever have to borrow that much money to do this. And it will be a phased-in project anyways, as you know. You understand that better than I do.
Right. I was just looking for worst case scenario to try to get some sense, or so people could start getting some sense that, yeah, it sounds awful, but maybe it's not as dire as people think is big a hit. Obviously, the bigger hurdle would be getting, the rest of Great Barrington to say yes to it. But I think if those numbers are out there showing actually what, it's not a huge hit to people for what we're actually getting, which is clean, potable drinking water. I think it might help that process along if people actually could see those figures. So
I think
just a quick suggestion at some point, maybe you guys could run some hypotheticals for people, if however that breaks out. Worst case scenario, not including any kind of state or federal funding, just so people have a better idea of what the numbers actually would be.
Yeah, and some of that is in some of the studies. If you dig deep into the studies that they are in there are some numbers for both Great Barrington and Housatonic if we were to merge the two. So there are some numbers already in there. And as we get closer to possibilities, we will continue to do that.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, Dan. Anyone else? Jim Stark.
I think Susie's suggestion of.
Just give me your address, please, Jim.
I'm sorry, 1099 Main Street.
Thank you.
The suggestion of finding out where the dirty water is excellent. I don't think you're going to get it from the DEP, Mark. But if someone were to send out questionnaires or somehow do a canvassing of the residents, that information could be had. We tried the water company and they weren't able to tell us.
We will look into that. I think your idea is a good one, Chip.
All right, thank you. The options that Mark mentioned earlier, I don't think those are the only options. But maybe that's something to think about further on.
The options could be unlimited. Those were the ones that we've looked at.
Yeah.
So
Okay, all right. That's all I can think of right now. Thank you.
thanks, Jim. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Ann.
Hi, Steve. Ann O'Dwyer, 26 Kirk Street, Housatonic. And I think my question's pretty simple. Where on the website are all these reports? I'm trying to find them and I'm searching the website and I can't find where it is on the website.
And if you go to the select board page on our website,
Oh, the select board page.
Yeah, on the left side, there's a menu and one of those options is Housatonic Waterworks information.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks, Ann. Anyone else? Hey, Dave, is this you again?
It is, and I'll just be quick. I just wanted to point out something that was made clear in the engineering report, which was that basically all of the water has a certain saturation of manganese in it. It has to do with how frequently the water moves through and how it's aerated. So where you're going to have dirty water in town is constantly going to be changing based on use patterns. So there's clearly some spots that are sore because they get relatively low volumes compared to other areas, and it would be nice to know where they are. But the fact is, you look at the Facebook for Housatonic, and people will all of a sudden be shocked it's their neighborhood. Everyone is affected at some point, depending on what the usage pattern is, and that's not going to get any better.
Thank you, Dave.
I mean, is what the engineer said, but that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. The last time I let someone speak twice, I got in trouble for it. This time I didn't. It was a good point, Dave. Anyone else? I really appreciate everyone coming out tonight, and we will have more of these meetings, and as we get more information, we will provide it to the public, and it's a two-way street. We want you to talk to the select board, to talk to the town manager. If you have information that you want, questions answered, we will be glad to help you with it. And just for those of you who aren't aware of it, on our every regular meeting of the select board on the agenda is Housatonic Waterworks. So sometimes the town manager will have a lot of information, sometimes very little. But if you ever want to just join us at the beginning of the meeting and listen, that's where the information will be. This is going to be an ongoing topic for a while now, and we want to keep you updated. So we appreciate everyone coming out tonight. Is there anyone else who wants to speak about anything? Which is I'm not ready for select board, Lee, I will. Let's go to select, even though it's not on the agenda, I'm going to select board's announcements or statements because we always go there. Garfield, anything? Hold on to that, Garfield. Someone did raise their hand and I don't want to leave anyone out of this. Mr. Diaz, Dagan Diaz? Just unmute yourself. You're muted. Garfield, I'll go to you and I'll come back to him once he gets unmuted. Do you have anything?
I had just a clarification, if I remember correctly, or correct me if I'm wrong. I thought even with an acquisition and whatnot, it's still going to take 2 to 4 years to get clean water.
It's not going to happen overnight. You are correct.
That sounds like a problem still.
This problem we can't do much about. It's just engineering. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Eric?
Yes, thanks, Steve. I just want to say, as a select board member and a customer of Housatonic Waterworks, that I feel I'm happy that this has been on the agenda. I'm feeling good that it does seem like there's motivation, and I feel we're moving slowly but in the right direction. So happy that we had 40-something people coming out tonight to listen. Happy to hear the reports, and I just hope that we keep the pedal on the, keep the gas pushed down here and keep this moving. And, in the long sense, I know we talked about town meeting, but I just think, I know if my neighbors 5-10 miles away, were getting groundwater, I would be very concerned and expect to have to do something as my neighbor to help them. So I keep hearing little chirps of people, sounding doubtful that Great Barrington, the residents 5-8 miles away, our neighbors, wouldn't give a lending hand here. So just wanted to put that out there. So, but I'm glad this is happening, glad to be involved. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Ed?
Excuse me, thank you. Thank you to everybody who showed up and spoke, but I want to say that I don't think anyone on the select board is looking at this as a Housatonic versus Great Barrington problem. This is citizens having a problem with their water. And I just want to echo what Eric said. I also assume when it gets to town meeting and the best idea we come up with to solve this, people will be thinking of us as one town. And I think coming from the board, I think we should keep encouraging that kind of talk. So thank you.
Thanks, Ed. Feel better. Lee?
Thank you. One thing I'd like to reiterate is that it's one thing that came from the meetings that we've been having is the importance of customers that are having issues with their water to directly contact Housatonic Waterworks and file their complaint. What it came to be is that it seemed that they weren't getting as many complaints as we assumed they were. And so I just want to stress how very, very important for the customers that are affected to write to housatonicwater@gmail.com and log their complaints and make sure that they have a record of it. It's very, very important that the complaints go directly to Housatonic Waterworks because we don't want to put them off the hook. I think it's really, really important that people realize that where the problem is coming from and that any complaints should go directly to them and obviously to us because we're working very, very hard to rectify this problem, but just to make sure that you do file your complaints directly and keep a log of the complaints to the Housatonic Waterworks. Thank you.
Thanks, Lee. I think I've spoken enough. Media time. Seeing no one, thank you everyone for coming out tonight. We appreciate that. And meeting is adjourned by unanimous consent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.